Greetings and welcome to another video. My name is Stallion, and today I wanted to explore something about FUT Champions that's been on my mind pretty much during the entirety of FIFA 19, because like no other FIFA 19 has made me feel like the majority of goals scored in Weekend League, or really any mode for that matter, are just atrocious. So what I decided to do is I compiled every single goal that I scored and conceded in an entire FUT Champions run, and based off of my personal, so not necessarily correct standards, I broke down the exact specific numbers just so I could get an idea of the exact percentage of goals I was happy with. Both in terms of what percentage of goals I scored that were acceptable and down to my skill, and both in terms of what percentage of goals that I conceded that were acceptable, at least in my opinion, and down to my own fault. So what you're currently seeing in the background are pretty much just all the goals that I scored this weekend, which I deemed acceptable, that I deemed, good enough. But before we get into the exact figures, I have a few disclaimers. Disclaimer number one, most of my games in FUT Champions, like pretty much many people's, pretty much everyone's, are ruined by, moments of horrific, unresponsive gameplay, delay, whatever you want to call it. So by definition, in those cases, most, if not all, goals are bad, because when you concede a goal and the gameplay is bad, it might look like it's your fault, and it is, but at the same time, there's so many moments where you can't player switch properly, you can't transition properly, and so you can't man mark properly because the gameplay is so bad and you're slower than what you usually are. And the same thing goes when you score a good goal. Sometimes it's possible. It's hard to tell if your opponent was having or experiencing really, really bad gameplay. So how can you give yourself the credit of scoring that good goal if your opponent is playing in like a swamp, it's extremely delayed, and he can't move around. So always keep that in mind when you watch my videos. But for most of my videos' sake, let's just ignore that. Let's just it goes without saying, responsive gameplay is the most important thing, right? But let's move on from that just for the sake of this video and all my other videos. Disclaimer number two, I never really judge an opinion based on someone's level. I don't care if you get silver, if you don't qualify for Weekend League, if you don't play FUT, or if you're top 100 or you're a professional player. All I care about is like the argument you're giving me and the proof. If do you have clips? What are you saying? All that sort of stuff. So that's really important to me. But that being said, I still want to give you, the viewer, an idea of the level of a player that I am, so that you can understand the stats that I'm going to give you in a second for my FUT Champions, right? So in FIFA 19, I'm a 2,700-ish skill rating player in Division Rivals, and in FUT Champions, I got top 100 in the second week of FUT Champions that we had, with the 29-1. I know, very, very weird flex, but nonetheless, I guess you should know that. And so what that means is it means I've been FUT Champions verified all year, and so I played qualifiers until I got bored of them, because even though I like competitive FIFA, the game is just not competitive in the right ways for me, so I didn't bother. I was also a top 100 player in the past, my best online result being a 40-0 in FIFA 17. So obviously, without intentionally trying to sound arrogant, I'm easily an elite level player, elite caliber player. And I'm definitely not a pro player or any of that, but I can still play against pros, many of which I practiced with, sometimes. And of course, even though in a 1v1 situation, I can be better than one, or I can have a better record over 10 games, most of them, obviously you have to admit they're better than me in many aspects of the game, but mainly the biggest quality that separates players like me from professionals or people who are consistently top 100 is basically the ability to be consistent and exploit the game to perfection. Me, on the other hand, I have this thing where I make my life extremely hard for no reason, and I play my own style because I love my own style. And I believe that anyone should be able to play competitively and achieve the best results they can just by playing clean football. This hasn't really been possible for a while now for many reasons, but nonetheless, I still play FIFA 19 without doing a single La Croqueta. Sometimes in my stream on Twitch, I say there's three types of people in this world. People who chain La Croquetas, people who complain about chaining La Croquetas, but they still do one La Croqueta and they think it's fine. And then there's people like me who don't do a single La Croqueta, let alone flick ups, tornadoes, first time volley things, all that weird stuff. Disclaimer number 3 is that these are just what I define as acceptable goals, right? And by acceptable, I mean that if I conceded them, they're acceptable if I feel like it was mostly my fault that, I conceded that goal. With obviously some room for interpretation. And on the other side, if I score them, I deem them acceptable if I feel like it was truly thanks to my own decision making, my own choices and abilities, not luck, RNG, or any other weird factor, right? I know and I accept that croquetas are good in FIFA 19, that nutmeg shots work, that you can shoot through people's legs, that first time shots with really no angle work in FIFA 19. I accept that. I accept El Tornado headers are a thing and all that stuff, right? But just because it works, just because it's what you have to do to score, doesn't mean that if I concede that, I'll acknowledge it as what should be a good goal in FIFA, right? I know I could do better personally by exploiting certain mechanics, but I'm not interested in that right now. I'm not trying to improve my weekend league. I just want to play the way I want to do and do as best as I can, playing how I want to play. This video and all my videos is more just trying to make a point that what works in FIFA 19 is ridiculous, but more importantly, even if you play clean, what you get punished for is beyond ridiculous. Without further ado though, let's get into the stats, right? So in this FUT Champions run that you can see running in the background right now, you're only seeing like the goals that I scored that I deem normal. I finished with 23 wins and 6 losses. So I only played 29 games, and then in my final game, I just pretty much decided to give someone a free win. So in 29 wins, I scored 80 goals. And I'm guessing this is pretty low in terms of how many goals scored compared to people on my level, but that's honestly to be expected because, like I said, not only do I never perform a single croqueta, but I'm also like always been extremely cautious with the chances I take, right? That's definitely a weak point of mine, and I should definitely be taking more shots regardless of what FIFA I'm playing. But even then, nobody's perfect, right? So out of the 80 goals I scored, not all of them were good. Personally, I was happy with 65 of them, which, again, they've been playing in the background, and I've been unhappy with 15. So 81% of my goals, I think I personally deserve to score, and 19% of the goals I thought were undeserved. On the other end, though, let's concentrate on how much I conceded, right? I conceded 34 goals, again, not great, and for context sake, I play 4-3-3-4 and 4-3-3-5, at least in this weekend league that you're seeing. And out of those 34 goals that I conceded, I was happy to take most of the responsibility of conceding them only for 8 goals. So only 24% of them I'm ready to take full responsibility, and I know it's low, but honestly, it could have been a lot lower. Out of those 8 goals, 3 were shots from outside the box, and out of those 3 shots, 1 was from kickoff, but we're still going to include it. I know a lot of people have issues with kickoff. 1 was completely fine, and the last one was in a game that was basically over, and essentially I just got lazy and distracted, right? 1 came from a corner situation, and nothing is really wrong here, but it's one of them where your defense is set awfully and you can't really do anything. Your opponent can just first time pass into a shot. And the final 4 all came from 1v1 situations. Now, the first one was completely fine. So was the second one. The third is me chasing the game with a 3 at the back formation and all-out attack. And honestly, even then, he gets a lot of help from a lifted pass that, is done all by the CPU. And it could easily be intercepted if this was a ground pass, right? It could trigger an animation on my khullet. And honestly, even in the fourth, he gets out of a sticky situation somehow, and my AI defender, then later on in Laurent Blanc, he auto lunges, but we'll accept these as our own fault. In the remaining 26, or in other words, 76% of the goals I conceded, anyone can always find some way to try and make it look like it's mostly my fault. But honestly, after looking at them, after thinking about them, for me, it's just really hard to accept how I concede these goals. It's really hard for me to take accountability because of how frequently these things happen. And so out of these 26 goals, 8 came from rebounds, right? So what I mean by this is this includes opponents passing into me, the ball bounces back, and really shortly after the ball bouncing back, they have an instant through ball that cuts me open, which should have never happened. I should have had the counterattack, or maybe this includes goalkeeper parries, so they shoot, keeper parries it to perfection to their striker who's far off on the other end, rebounds from posts and all that sort of stuff. 4 of the 26 came from nutmegs. This includes goals that occur as a result of through balls nutmegging my defenders. So the shot itself is fine, but the way the ball gets to the striker is obviously via nutmeg, or just simply shots that go through my defender's legs, right? The classic nutmeg shot. And this kind of intertwines with the next section. 9 of the 26 goals came from poor shot choices that only would work in FIFA 19 or maybe other FIFAs, but essentially I don't believe they're balanced shot choices. So the reason these goals happen is either because they're crazy shots with insane curves that defy physics, like these trajectories cannot happen based on the inputs that we see on the screen, or first post shots. You know, this might be a very controversial thing. For me, first post shots have a time and place to work in a video game. This relates to the point that I've been splashing here and there in lots of my videos, when you know, sometimes you'll let someone shoot first post because your goalie is right there, so and you're worried about the second post. So while you cover the second post or the far post, you let the player shoot, you let your opponent shoot near post, so that your player, or so that your keeper can parry it into a corner, right? You play the odds. But more often than not, you can just shoot from the craziest first post shots. I think some first post shots need to go in, and they should, and they do, but some shouldn't, and the ones I'm showing, I believe, should not. And trust me, even some of the goals that I deemed unacceptable that I scored were some like this as well. So, you know, it's not just because I conceded them. But again, out of these 9 shots, like I said, it includes crazy shots, first post shots that I don't think should be going in, shots that only occur because of poor defensive AI. See my previous tweet, and you know, when the AI moving back and causing all sorts of space that shouldn't happen, or really just pay to win snooker shots with R9. And the last 4 came from RNG situations that I really didn't know how to categorize. This includes like corner kicks. I think all corner kick headers are just random as hell. No skill involved. Random croquetas causing bounces leading to awkward situations, or random lifted ground passes made by the CPU into a striker that would otherwise be intercepted. And like I said earlier, I scored 80 goals, right? And out of the 80 goals I scored, 15 or only 19% of them were undeserved. Actually, that's a pretty high stat anyways. And, you know, similar to the previous section, you know, we'll start with rebounds. How many of those 15 came from rebounds? 7 of them. 7 of them came from rebounds, and, you know, same sort of requirements, criteria as, you know, the goals that I conceded. 3 of them came from nutmeg situations. 2 of them came from myself, you know, choosing poor shot choices, and 3 from random uncategorized situations. Overall, though, there's like a few conclusions that I wanna make out of these stats, right? You know, a lot of people say that things balance out. Oh, if passing is assisted, it's also assisted for you. You can make use of nutmegs, right? Oh, if shooting is unbalanced, you can make use of alternados and croquetas and all these bad shot choices. But here's the thing: I've been cultivating a style of FIFA, which I know it sounds stupid, for many years, right? I've been loving playing a certain style for many years, and I've built myself a way to make certain decisions, right? Certain decisions that go with a certain logic, a certain philosophy, and a certain skill gap that used to be more reward in the past. Someone who just picked up FIFA for the first time in FIFA 19 is obviously going to make different choices to someone who, you know, has been playing FIFA for many years. Obviously, you have people who have been playing FIFA for many years and they have no problem adapting every year. I could take first-time shots as well, but, you know, to me, there's more to FIFA than just adapting, you know? Sometimes you just want to play clean football, and sometimes you hope that while everyone does their own thing and finds whatever is OP that specific year, you know, obviously I adapt my game style to every FIFA that comes out, but for the most part, I'd like to keep playing beautiful football. I'd like to not rely on things that are overly broken. At the end of the day, everyone has their own, you know, criteria for what should be and what shouldn't be. But for me, the whole argument that that passing is broken for both players on the pitch, that shooting is broken for both players on the pitch, is just completely wrong, because you're assuming that both players are going to make the same decisions. relative to like the amount of goals that I'm conceding, I score less bad shots, right? I take less bad shots. And so it's normal that I'm always going to have goals that are bad. You know, maybe I get a nutmeg in my favor, but for the most part, because I'm so, indecisive, or not really indecisive, but because I'm so particular with the chances I take, because I just enjoy crafting a perfect chance, you can't assume that shooting is the same for me as it is for my opponent, because I'm not going to succumb to a game of poor decision making, even though that's what it takes to win this year, because I'm hoping that in the future FIFA this gets addressed, right? Some decisions are so poor that they just work because the game is flawed. It's not even a matter of this is OP, this is not OP. You know, we've seen it with nutmeg passes, nutmeg shots, crazy bicycle kick goals, crazy flick up headers, crazy. We've all seen what we're talking about, guys. It's not even a matter of what works and what doesn't. Like, this game defies logic in levels that I've never seen before. And overall, seeing these stats really just proves to me what I've been thinking and feeling the whole year, man. Like, this game just feels, it's just not fun for me, and I can imagine it's the same for people who play similar to me, and even people who decide to just adapt every year and use what they have to use, even if they might not enjoy it. I can imagine those people as well just don't have fun. But yeah, I'd be curious to see what you guys feel about these stats that I created, obviously. So, they're man-made by Stallion himself. So, they have their limitations. So make of them what you will. But for me, it proves to me that the majority of my goals are decent. I have lots of room to improve in terms of how many goals I score. I can concede a lot less. I should probably be cutting the goal down to half. But even then, I'm confident that the vast majority, aka 75-ish% of the goals I concede, are really just out of my hand. And in terms of just FIFA not being a game that rewards decision making the way I would like it to be seen, whether you agree with my vision for what FIFA should be or not, that's a different matter altogether. But for how I see it, yeah, I'm just not happy with what I'm conceding, but at least I can say that I'm mostly happy with what I'm scoring. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, until next time, peace out.